Go to Mr. Paul Lane now. He's the MHA for Mount Pearl Southlands. He's on line one. How you doing? Independent MHA.
You got her, Pete. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I was very interested in your email, and I was not aware that sections, was it 28 and 29?
Yes.
Say essentially we're going to pass this act and then we're going to make up the rules after.
That's exactly what the act is saying. And Pete, just to be clear, just for the record, in case I'm accused of otherwise, I just want to say right off the bat that I welcome a new Procurement Act or Public Tendering Act, whatever you want to call it. It's actually called a Procurement by Public Bodies Act is the new name, which is replacing the existing Public Tendering Act, and there's a couple of other acts as well that tie into procurement. So I welcome it. I certainly welcome having it modernized and so on, and something I called on for the last 2 or 3 years when I was the critic for certainly Service NL. But Pete, and there are good things in the act. I don't want to make this seem that like it's all negative, because it's not. The fact that the act talks about including consultants, for example, in the past, like. Government and agencies could just hire engineers and architects and stuff like that. They were called professional services, and they didn't need to go and get any quotes or tenders. They could just basically hire who they like. Now that's going to be changed, and those individuals would have to go through the same procurement practice to be hired as anyone else, which is, I think that's a good thing. The thing that we're looking at the principle of best value as opposed to just simply low bid. I think that's a positive thing, although I know that there are people who have concerns about how that's exactly administered and so on. And the fact that we're going to bring the Research and Development Corporation as well as NALCOR would now fall under the Public Tendering Act, I think that is a positive, although I will say that in terms of NALCOR do have a number of exemptions.
Muscat Falls being one of them.
Where they don't have to follow it, like if they're in partnership with other, other companies and organizations and joint ventures, and then, of course, if there's any trade deals. And so there's a whole bunch of things that can exempt them. So I do have concerns and a lot of questions about that. But certainly I think in terms of the day-to-day operation of NALCOR, in terms of their offices and all that kind of stuff, it would have to fall under the Public Tendering Act, which it didn't before. So that's good. The fact we're going to have a new arm's length authority, which are called the Procurement Advisory Council.
Yeah, but wait now, just a second. 29 says that the minister may make regulations respecting the terms of reference for this Procurement Advisory Council, the composition of the council, the duties of the council. So essentially, between the minister and the lieutenant governor in council, everything is really up for grabs. The lieutenant governor in council is really just following what the premier's office dictates.
The lieutenant governor in council, let's come to that. So before we go, so the point I want to make, and there's going to be more stuff posted online. So the point I want to make is that I'm not against the act in principle, and there's some good things. But getting to your point, and this is the main point that I have the biggest issue with, as you said, Section 28 and 29. So Section 28 lists 17 items. They're listed from A to Q, which is 17 of them, things that the Lieutenant Governor Council will make regulations for, and Lieutenant Governor Council is essentially the cabinet. And then under Section 29, there are 3 items, A, B, and C, respecting this new Procurement Advisory Council that the minister will make all the regulations. So, when we talk about some of the things that are here, like we're talking about, so in other words, the cabinet will write the regulations dealing with supplier performance. The cabinet will write the regulations respecting the manner in which bids are to be evaluated. They'll write them in terms of the manner in which contracts are to be awarded. They will write them. They're
going to write everything. They're going to write all the rules. All the rules. Everything important is going to be decided at a later date under this act.
Correct. So, and the list goes on. So you're right. That exactly is the point. So therefore, it puts someone who's duly elected as MHA, like myself, and opposition members, and quite frankly, all government members, really, I'm being asked to vote on something totally blind as to what the rules will be. If I vote against it, no doubt it'll be said, oh, so you're against the new Public Tendering Act. You've been calling for one, and now you're going to vote against it. If I vote for it, and they make up a bunch of regulations after the fact that I totally disagree with, then they're going to say, well, you voted for it. So it really puts you in an odd spot as to what do you do. So the best we can do, I guess, is try to bring forth amendments. And so I'm in speaking to other members in opposition, I got a feeling that there's going to be a bunch of amendments that are going to come forward. At the very least, what I would like to see is, if we're totally serious about this new Public Tendering Act, which we should be, given the fact that government spends $3 to $4 billion, I'm told, a year through procurement practices. So it is huge. At the very least, if we're going to do it, why not, again, utilize an all-party committee at least to oversee the regulations, so that instead of the cabinet just writing up all the or getting all the regulations written up and just putting them through, at the very least, why not allow all members of the House or representatives of all the parties and so on to be involved in overseeing these regulations before they are actually adopted and we move forward.
Well, otherwise it just looks like a license to do whatever you want, whenever you want, to me. So I don't really see the value or the difference.
No, there isn't, and that's what I'm saying. Like right now, as it currently stands, and by the way, I'm not saying that the regulations will be bad. I mean, these might be the best regulations anywhere in the world.
But they might not be, because we don't know what they're going to be.
And we don't know, and we don't have, and the key is, A, we don't know, and B, members of the House have absolutely zero say on it whatsoever. It's whatever the cabinet decides and whatever the minister decides to do.
Yeah, so, they might be fairly and legitimately applied in one circumstance, and by the same or a different government applied completely differently.
Correct, absolutely.
Because they might be different.
You're correct. Yeah. You're correct. So that's the big concern. Now, the other concern, and there's another little side concern there that was raised, I think it was by one of the members of the NDP, raised it yesterday, I think that's who it was. And that was another good point, though, is that once this act is passed in the House Assembly, the new act, it says in that act that they're going to repeal, it will automatically repeal the current Public Tendering Act and regulations. Yeah. So if the new regulations are not even written yet, which we've been told they're not, so if there's no new regulations and we're going to repeal the old regulations, what do we do in the meantime?
Well, I just don't understand how we can pass this until more of the regulations are understood. I mean, it's essentially you're passing a blank check and saying, whatever you decide to put on that check later, then that's fine with us because we're passing it now. Well,
that's essentially what it's saying. And I cannot, like I said, I don't know how in good conscience I can stand up and say I support that. But by the same token, I do support a new Public Tendering Act, and I do, support modernizing what's there and making it better. I think everybody does. Yeah. But to say that I support basically, passing this and saying, okay, I'm going to trust you to do all of this and do all of perfect, and I'm going to be fine with it no matter what it is. Well, I doubt no say or no vote or no input. I don't think that's right.
I doubt you'll be alone voting against it, but I'd say it's still going to pass.
Well, it's going to pass regardless. Yeah. The government has a majority, so unless members are going to vote against their own government, which generally doesn't happen very often. It happens every now and then, but not very often. It's going to pass. But I'm willing to work with government on this. Like I as one member am not in any way trying to be obstructionist here, because I really think that the principle of the legislation is good, it's needed, and we should do it. And I think we should all work together to do it. So either the regulation somehow, either we deal with it through legislation as opposed to regulations, or, like I said, in the absence of that, at the very least, let's form some kind of a committee or whatever made up of members from all stripes or no stripes, and work together to oversee the regulations and make sure that it's the best possible thing that we're all happy with and works in the best interest of the people.
I will humbly suggest that it is the way it is because they want it that way, and their interest is it's probably not mutual, the interest in working with you or anybody else on it, because this is what they put forward after a long and considered consideration on it. Anyway, listen, I got to go, sir, but I do appreciate your heads up on this, and we'll have many conversations about this, I'm sure. When do you think it's going to come to a final vote?
Well, it's hard to say, Pete. We were into second reading on it yesterday, and it never passed second reading because I think there might be a couple of people left maybe with the PCs, and possibly Jerry Rogers, if she should choose to speak, would have the opportunity to speak if they want to. So, and then it goes to what's known as Committee of the Whole. And Committee of the Whole is where you see a lot of amendments generally being brought forward. So how many amendments might or might not be brought forward, and if they're found in order, because one of the problems with amendments, of course, is that they have to be found in order by the Speaker, and it's pretty tricky a lot of times to get amendments in there. You would think it would be simple, but it's not under the rules. So, I'm suspecting that we're going to continue on with this tomorrow, but that's up to the House Leader. But I don't think it's going to go. I think for some reason I got the feeling that government thought that this would be a good news story. We just fly on through, rubber stamped or whatever. But I can tell you that I don't think that's going to happen, and
no,
because there are legitimate concerns. And like I said, it's not being against the act, it's not being partisan or against government. We all want a new tendering act, and I think that the basis is there for it in what's written. But to give carte blanche authority to the cabinet and the minister to work out every one of the details as to how it actually works. That doesn't work for me. I don't think it's going to work for
highly presumptuous at best. I'd say the first amendment proposed is going to be to finish the content of the act.
That could be too. I can't prejudge as to what the amendments might be, but there's no doubt that there are legitimate concerns over those Section 28 and 29. There's no doubt.
Imagine people to say it's a good thing to pass an act that says we're going to come up with an act. Essentially, they said, you pass this, and what it does is it gives us full license to do what we want without further consideration in the House. Anyway, I do appreciate your call.
Not a problem, Pete. You have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.